Good morning, people out there. My name is Kira. I'm here with my co-discussants, our co-hosts, Brittae and Jay, and we are here at Bring Shame Back Radio in the U. You can reach us at 314-516-8438 or hashtag BSBRSTL. We're coming to you at the quarter mark because we were just so excited. We just needed to come in at the quarter mark. But our co-host had a little bit of car issues, and then we had a little bit of training going on in here. But we're here nonetheless, and we've got a great discussion ahead for you. We also have our guest. Jay, tell us about who our guest is today.
Yeah, later on today we're going to have our guest Bruce Franks Jr., also known as Ooops, in the building. Battle rapper extraordinaire. Not to mention he's an activist, St. Louis-based activist. And so he's going to have a lot of interesting things for us to talk about later on.
Yeah. Did we introduce ourselves?
We just didn't do any handles. So how can we reach you, Brittae?
So this is Brittae. You can reach me after the show on Twitter at neverfail_26.
Kira at ITSKMV.
I got this.
You got it.
You can reach me at Facebook.com.
All right, y'all. You want to jump into the hot topic so that we can make space for?
Let's do that.
So, Kira, what's been going on in the world?
All right. So we were on the air last Tuesday, which so happened to be a year to the date of the verdict of the non-indictment of Darren Wilson in the case against Mike Brown. And really, as we decided to come up with this topic, we were really doing a lot of reflections on life. 365 days after that day. So there were a lot of things that happened since we were last on the air to include that anniversary. Mm-hmm. We just came out of the Thanksgiving holiday, which a year ago we had the first, economic boycott, no spending of money, which led to the sit-ins, the lay-ins in malls and across the country. And a year later, we're seeing the same thing. We're seeing the same folks standing out and saying, until there is justice for black people, we're going to protest. So, let me hear what you all think about some of the things that have happened post that verdict. And also, we had some protests happening in various cities that are bringing to light cases against African-American males and females who are being slaughtered in these streets by, our armed protectors.
Yeah, so we're in our 1 year anniversary of the killing of Mike Brown. And we're still having the same problems. I know I've written a piece not too long ago about just how every month there's been a killing of, an unarmed black person, And recently we saw in the news with the Laquan McDonald. That's exactly what's happening. Laquan, who passed away in October of 2014, last year, was gunned down by a police officer in the middle of the street. Now, and there's been a lot of recent protests in this past week or so, and the thing about it too, that he was 17, and it's funny how it all played out to me in Chicago, because when I look at the video of what happened with Laquan, to me, and this is me, it looks just if not the same as what happened to Kwame Powell. If you watch the video, Laquan, he's in the middle of the street, and they say he had a knife, and and you see him get shot down 16 times or whatever. Prior to the audio, you couldn't really tell how many shots, but he got messed up pretty bad. But in this Chicago case, the officer ended up getting charged to where in Kwame Powell's case, they said it was justified because he had a knife in his hand, which
an imminent threat.
all of that. And like, it's crazy how both pretty much the same situation, you know, played out in completely different ways. And it was actually like in Chicago, it was like a lot of the protests was about the cover up, because you know, prior to releasing to him even being charged, they held the video footage for like 400 days or something like that, you know. And I don't to see both of them get played out like that, you know, pretty much the exact same situation is crazy, and turned out with two completely different outcomes. And we know that, you know, they tried to cover it up. Chicago PD tried to get, you know, I know they tried to settle the case before the video even got put out with, you know, settling with the family. I think it was like $5 million or something like that.
You know, if there's anything to get, I don't know the amount that they settled for. Sorry.
Yeah, I do that.
Oh, $5 million?
Yeah.
Right. If there's anything to get excited about a year later, and, you know, we talk about sort of the hopelessness that people feel when every time you turn on the TV, there's always sort of like a split screen. There's a screen of the black man who gets gunned down, like off the strength of just being him and being there. And then on the other side of the screen, you see the careful, thoughtful, you know, tactful, protective way in which we are, you know, that police officers gear these homegrown terrorists, those who go into, you know, Planned Parenthood and shoot up an establishment, or walk into Mother Emanuel and shoot up a praying congregation. In the face of that, I think what I get, you know, incrementally get more excited about is that people are starting to care more. That the black agenda is not being taken for granted. The black vote is not being taken for granted. That when Trump calls, you know, clergy together, that clergy stand up and say, you will not have a conversation with me behind closed doors and think that I'm going to accept that. You will stand in my church. You will feel the comfort of the space that I'm in. You will meet me where I am. That they're inviting people to the table, and that people are now feeling brave enough to stand up and say, I'm going to protest. I'm going to put my life on the line and stand in front of the Minneapolis Police Department and risk the fact of getting sprayed by bullets by some anarchists, some folks who hate me just because of the color of my skin. I mean, really, that's courage under fire. And really, when politicians, stakeholders, systems of oppression start to recognize that the fear of the suppressed and the oppressed start to rise, like, it's going to be transformative.
I mean, you got to think about what happened here. You know, like I say all the time, man, what happened here in St. Louis, it's really people are really taking that into account when how they deal with the situation of police brutality throughout the U.S. Because we've seen how, you know, Mike Brown and Ferguson played out with all of the just all the media coverage, you know, and then whether you agree with it or not, a lot of the protesting, and then some of the actual burning of some buildings or whatever. I think a lot of people are taking that into account when they deal with this situation of police brutality, because after seeing what happened, like all of the mess that happened in Ferguson, like other cities are not taking that approach anymore. like because we're talking with Baltimore, they're not taking that approach anymore. In Cleveland, they're not taking. I'm talking about as far as public officials, as far as really doing something about the issue, and actually charging someone. Because I believe in Laquan McDonald's case, he's like one of the few officers who's actually been charged for murder.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
When we talk about, black people being killed, you know, by police, even on video.
You have to be careful with that just a little bit, though. I don't mean to break you off for a second, and I don't mean to be the bearer of terrible news, but at the same time, we gotta acknowledge the twofold in that type of situation. The same thing. We have to understand how the judicial system works when we charge someone, and so if you charge someone with such a heavy burden, especially a police officer, because they're given a whole lot more laxation, so to speak, than the average citizen when it comes to something like that. So when you charge somebody with murder, especially a police officer, you have a even heavier burden of proof for that person to actually be convicted for that. So you have to think about it. Well, why would we charge a police officer? Because think about it, with Trayvon Martin, it was a different type of charge, and you still had that burden of proof to show, and you see how easily that was kind of twisted and turned to get a different result. So when you charge somebody, and don't get me wrong, I'm 100% for it, because that's exactly what it was. It was murder. But I guess you got to think of the strategy that goes behind that. So if we can put somebody up on charges for murder, which symbolically is really, really good. I'm trying to strategically understand why are we doing murder? Because it goes without saying, he could have been brought up on charges of murder a year ago, because this happened a long time ago. So if it's coming out now, it seems almost strategic to shut the people up, to charge them with murder, because then you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a police officer was not in fear of his life. That is the number one excuse for a police officer to pull his weapon and kill you. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not sure.
So,
I mean, so I would think that we are looking.
I think I love her, and she one bad motherfucker. I think I love her. Oh Lord, I think I love her. I said I think I love her, and she one bad motherfucker. Fellas whistle when she pass. Other girls got an issue with that ass. Baby, it's a good thing that you bad. Your ex took you for granted, oh boo hoo boo, that's too bad. Psych, he just made a way for a brother. What's your requirements? I got them all covered. First time I seen her, I knew she was like no other. Oh Lord, I think I love her. I think I love her. Yeah. Oh Lord, I think I love her.
Hey, this is Bring Shame Back Radio. I am Brittae. I'm in here with my co-hosts, Kira and Jay. We got a special guest in the house with us, in the station with us today. We got my man, Ooops. Ooops in the building. Ooops, say what's up to him, man.
What's going on, man? You know what it is. Ooops in the building. What's poppin'?
Drop some bars. Is that next?
I'm trying to tell you.
he came with his Snoop Dogg voice today.
Snoop Dogg ain't never been this hard.
Hey, speaking to the mic a little bit. Ooops.
Got you.
Yeah, man. But I'm glad to have you in the studio with us, man.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, man. You've been doing like a lot of work, you know, activist work. And what's different about your work in particular is that, you know, it is that you work a lot with the cops.
Well, first of all, why don't you tell us about your work?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah, 28 to Life. I know that's your campaign. So what is that, man?
I'm a superhero.
That sounds about right.
Drop mic. Interview done.
Right.
We save lives. Like, that's my only mission with everything that we do. Our only mission with 28 to Life is to save our life. You know, Malcolm X said by any means necessary, and he wasn't just talking about, you know, going to the window with the AK. He was talking about however it is we see fit, that we need to make things work for the betterment of our future. So I feel like everything that we do is for our future. 28 to Life is we equal opportunity superheroes. And when it comes to police community relationship, police accountability, youth empowerment, economic growth through small businesses, those are all of the things that we push and we stand for. So
what brought you into doing this type of work, and how long have you been doing 28 to Life?
I've been doing 28 to Life since March. what brought me into it was actually getting tear gas and pepper spray next to you.
Right. I remember that.
Like being out there in the trenches and being mad for days on top of days doing 12-hour shifts, and finally getting to the point where it's like, all right, what's next though? You know, how can we form some type of solution? What can we fix? Like how can we change the narrative ourselves instead of waiting on everybody else? So that's what really brought me to it, and a host of other incidents. You know, I was victim of police brutality on Christmas Eve last year.
I remember that too.
You know, I was on the panel.
What happened?
At the Antonio Martin when he was killed.
At the QT?
At the at
in
the
Berkeley.
Mobile. Yeah, at the Mobile in Berkeley, across the street from the
Mobile.
QT. We peacekeepers. So, you know, we're the divide in between the people and the police. And so what happened was we stopped a lot of the stuff that they got recognized for. And it was just officers out there who had their own, you know, they was already hyped up. They was ready to go. So they reached out and grabbed one of the peacekeepers, and, you know, we kind of tussling with basically kind of like a tug of war between that peacekeeper.
Right.
And the officer trips him. We all fall, and
You got arrested.
yeah,
Now that
I
was in
got more
Berkeley,
than
right?
Yeah, I got
So
beat.
Berkeley has been touting themselves as being a step ahead of Ferguson. So, you know, they got the dash cams, the lapel cams. They're working with, the Commission on Policing Reform? I can't remember the name, the acronym. You know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
the agency that creates accreditation.
Yeah.
Now, so tell me how that's working. So, like, you have firsthand experience. You're also working with city and county police departments, but then, you know, you get detained, beaten in this space. Like, are you invited back to the table to say, here's my truth and this is what you need to do? Like, how did that conversation happen with Berkeley after that whole incident happened?
Yeah, they ain't know who they was touching.
See, the thing is, beforehand, like, this is before all of this came along. You know,
Right.
so beforehand it was Berkeley. It was in Berkeley, but it didn't involve Berkeley officers.
Okay.
Because, you know, they had outsourced, so they had St. John's there, they had St.
Oh,
Louis
okay.
County.
Okay.
But the actual chief in Berkeley, Chief McCall, is actually a good guy.
Did he apologize?
He apologized, and as well as making sure my charges got dropped. You know, so he did as much as he
Shout
could.
out to Berkeley
So,
for doing
yeah.
the right thing.
absolutely. For Chief McCall, I don't know about the rest.
Right. So I have a question, because
Absolutely.
we were talking about, you know, what you do is within the Black community is controversial.
Absolutely.
Strictly from the trust standpoint, and that it has gotten to the point where it doesn't matter if you're Black, white, whatever. If you're in blue, you're not trusted by the Black community. And so there's a lot of other national protesters who have equally said, you know what, he's doing his thing. I don't trust the cops. I'm going to do my thing, but we support him.
Absolutely.
But when you start to read, like I was reading an article in the Riverview Times, and I did the work, you know, I did what you're not supposed to do. I jumped to the comment section. And I started reading about how, you know, they're bashing the work that you're doing because, you know, the problem is Black on Black. Like, in the face, when you're having these conversations with police officers and then the whole rhetoric of Black on Black crime comes to the table, tell me how you respond to that.
This is exactly what I tell them.
And Ooops, make sure you get into the mic when you say
Yeah,
this.
I'm trying not to
Right.
bite
Like
this.
that battle rap
Yeah.
mentality.
Yeah, I know you know how. I know you know
I
how.
think this book a little low. But this is exactly how I attack it, right? So when officers or anybody says, you know, we got to worry about Black on Black crime first, we're handling that. We're doing as much as we can. But the thing about it is, until cops stop killing us, then we can now have the trust in actually calling them to help them combat what's going on in our neighborhood.
Right.
I can't call the cops if Johnny breaking into my car and I don't want him dead.
Right.
I just, you know, let's snatch him up. Let's see if we get him into a diversion program or something like
Right.
that. But No, so now I'm not gonna call the cops because I don't trust the cops. So
Yeah.
what I'm gonna do now? I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna try to talk to them and so on and so forth. But now you see, just like the young 13-year-old brother that lost his life, they was rummaging through a car for change, just because they kids, they adolescents, they was bored. 3 kids over on Riverview, they go in the man car, the man shoots, kills one of the kids. So now now that's where that issue of trust is. We can't call the police because you want us to take care of ourselves, but this is what happens when we take care of ourselves.
Right.
You know, so it's either more black on black crime, because everybody's not going to be taken to talking to, or taken to being snatched up, or saying, you know, this, hey, look, I need to talk to you, I need to rap with you, so on and so forth. So if the cops, if we can build this trust and get these crooked cops out of here, get the true community police in here, and build that bridge, then we can feel more comfortable with calling the police and saying, okay, because we need them. We need them to help attack this what's going on right now. We ain't gonna be able to do it by ourselves.
So how do they respond? Is it dismissive? Is it, oh, yeah, and then they just go on to speak in the same language?
But most of the response has been well perceived. A lot of these officers have shown up. A lot of these officers are at the table when it comes to reform with policy within St. Louis City Police Department. It's actually been overwhelming in a positive way, the way we've been able to kind of turn a lot of these officers' views, because realistically, it's officers out here who are just pure racists. I mean, it's no denying that. But it's also officers out here who are just ignorant to our culture. Like, they don't understand why we do certain things. They don't understand because the way they grew up, they did things a certain way. Just like we say all the time, man, I don't understand. I don't know why white people do what they do. You know, it's the same way when it come to us. Like, so they don't understand. So a lot of times when someone say, oh, we talk about threat assessment, and they feel like, you know, they perceive a threat. Sometimes that's true. Like, and to us, we're like, nah, that's not what it is. But we really have to break down. We really have to break down these cultures and sit at the table with those who want to sit back with us.
Yeah, and that's the thing I've been an advocate for myself. And man, is just having officers in the community that's reflective of the community.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because if you got somebody who stand, you know, all the way out in Clayton, but they policing in Ferguson, they don't even get, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
like they don't understand the community. They don't understand the people.
See,
you know what I mean?
This the thing, like with the city, right? I think it's so important in the city that our police department reflects us, because the city is a lot different. The city's a lot different. So when you have somebody who's grown up in the city, who knows the ins and outs, who knows these families, who knows the neighborhoods, who just knows everything about the city and all these different districts, which they, you know, how they're set up, then it's easier for them to have compassion. You see what I'm saying? They got more compassion for their community because they grew up in it. They know what it's like to come to a house and somebody's called the police for a domestic dispute, and you come in a house and the lights off, the heat off, all these different things off. So this officer's going to automatically go into solution, go into resource. Like, all right, let's separate the two. Let's see what we could do to fix the situation, rather than somebody got to go to jail today. Because 99% of the time when the police are called, you are encountering people at the worst time of their life. You're encountering people at they most vulnerable moment, they most emotional.
It's
you know,
definitely not the best time of their life if the
No,
police is
no.
there.
yeah, they pissed off. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So we got to have those who are going to treat a lot of these situations with compassion, rather than going in there treating aggression with aggression.
But, you know, the only challenge that I have to Brittae's point, I think it goes back to, like, debunking ignorance. Because, like, what if you just move out so you can get a house and some land, but you from the city, right? And on top of it, like, Ferguson black people aren't different from Clayton black people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, if you have a bad perception of black people, you know,
That follows you.
it follows you wherever you go. So it's really about, one, how do you create how do you diversify the infrastructure of police departments so that they're getting that organic training, so they have more minorities in that space, so that you can have that free exchange, so no matter where you police, you're getting equity. And we're gonna answer that question right after the PSA.
We're gonna get to it. I'm gonna respond to Kira, then we're gonna get into some more questions.
I want Oops to respond.
I was ready.
She cares about you.
I can talk to you tomorrow.
We got Oops in the building, man. He in here dropping some knowledge on us, man. So we're gonna go to a quick PSA, and we're gonna be right back with Oops, man. This is Bring Shame Back Radio. All right, y'all. I told you we right back to it. But anyway, to follow up on what we was just saying before the PSA about officers being reflective of the community, and we're gonna have Oops respond to that as well. But my thing is that
that was smooth. That was smooth, bro.
Yeah. I'm gonna get mine off.
We got company.
Right.
No. I just wanted to be on record that even though I'm not saying just white folks need to be in the community. I think there need to be more black officers, because there is, when I say reflection, I mean true reflection, like somebody who looks like them, who may have been through the same situations, who can respond better. You know what I mean? Not just geographically. So, but anyway, we're gonna get back to Oops and
what she was saying actually made sense. And in the city, we have through our ethical society, we have our minority recruit class, which we have, out of our class, we had 11, which is 11 of the 16 who actually got picked for the academy came from our minority recruit class. So they're making strides in the city to get more minority officers. And these recruit classes are so detrimental, because you have you're not even teaching the police aspect, you're teaching the community aspect. We breaking down police involved shootings. We're talking about what's a good shoot, what's not a good shoot from both ends, from the community aspect, from the police aspect. We're talking about true community policing. We're talking about true community work. We're talking about following your core values as a St. Louis City Metropolitan Police officer, and not just going by what this commanding officer who has a certain mind frame and a certain way of teaching that's pushing it on certain officers. Because that's what happens. Sad to say, that's what happens in the city of St. Louis with our police department, because we can get out here and say, stop killing us all day. But nobody understands who's killing us. If you walk out into the city and you say, who's shooting young black men when it comes to the police department? They're going to say the police. They're going to say the police, not knowing that 90% of our police-involved shootings that resulted in death since 2009 have come from mobile reserve, have come from our SWAT, have come from our special ops, which is all one unit. They're not willing to go back and sit down and think about and really find out the demographics of this particular unit and what it used to be and who used to run it and now who runs it. When it was 50-50 black, it was 50 black, 50 white, and now it's over 85% white. And that all happened when a certain lieutenant came and decided he wanted to change the infrastructure. But when that lieutenant came, and then these good officers who I know personally were on this particular unit left, then you have police involved shootings. And then you have police involved shootings from SWAT and special ops officers, even when they're not on duty. Jason Flannery was a secondary officer, but he still had that mentality.
Is Jason with Vondet Myers?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. And what you just said is just powerfully speaking, and I just want to put that to like how you comment on how that relates nationally. Pretty much the same thing that you were talking about, just how that relates nationally. In different areas as well, because I know you do a lot of work nationally and go around the country talking about the same stuff. So how do you think that relates?
So what happens is, with all of the different they have so many different units in these police departments, but in the different cities, it's not broken up like ours is most of the time.
Right.
Most of the time, a lot of times they have their SWAT units that only do SWAT work, right? They have their special ops unit who only work on special ops.
Okay.
Our particular police department, you know, our officers are interchangeable. You know, you might see them kicking in the door for SWAT. Then you might see them over here doing jump outs. Then you might see them over here
Doing
in the
dare.
3rd district. Yeah,
Doing dare at the school.
Yeah.
They still do dare?
Yeah,
they still do
right.
dare.
Either
Breaking
all
out.
That's
that.
not. Yeah.
But it's just our police department. When they say it's a shortage of officers, I mean, realistically, we think we have a lot of police officers, but it really is, because you have 1,300 police officers, but we got a city of 300,000 people.
It's spread too thin. But I don't think that negates the fact that they should be properly trained for whatever task they're getting ready to do. Right?
Absolutely. And we have to go back. So many times we talk about, you know, the current nature of what's going on and how this is a deep-rooted problem. This didn't just happen in the last 3 years since Dotson been chief. This has been happening the last 15 to 20 years. We've had corrupt cops and a corrupt system and people not being promoted like they should be. And we have to think about the fact that if we talk about color, we want to bring, we need white, we need black, I don't care about that. I want right.
Yeah.
Right.
I want right, because at the end of the day, before Chief Dotson, 3 out of the 4 chiefs were black.
Right. You know, and I happened to hear at one of the Ferguson Commission meetings, Dotson on the podium talking about the actual curriculum associated with police enrollment, police training, so that they can become, so that they can get on the force. And one of the things that was most alarming was sort of number one, it wasn't optional, but the low amount of like community engagement credits and requirements that they had to do, as well as the psychological assessment post case. Now, in your conversations and even post Ferguson report release, like, is that one of the things on your radar? Is like, not only how do we get them back in the community, but how do we heal them after they go through something that's traumatic, so it's not this quick, rapid release of aggression whenever a situation happens?
Absolutely. That's one thing we're working on, and it actually got brought to my attention more so here for workshops that I attended with Dan Isom. And one thing we have been working on is more strenuous, more hours of community engaged services. We have it's a program that I adopted from Chief Melron Kelly in South Carolina called Beyond the Badge. And basically what happens is that last week of that you're in academy, because when you're in academy, you strictly police. It's police and police and police and police and police, you know, tactics, shooting, all these different things. And then after the academy, you go to a week of field training, which or however long field training, then you're on the streets. So we never get that community aspect. So with Beyond the Badge, that last week of the academy and your first week of actually field training, what happens is you spend nothing but time doing community work in all of these different aspects when it comes to our children's hospitals, our reentry programs, troubled youth, just all of the different aspects of which you're going to be encountering people, even our homeless shelters. Everywhere you're going to be encountering these different types of situations. That's what Beyond the Badge is about. And then when it comes to the post, basically when it comes to post-traumatic stress syndrome, after they've shot or so on and so forth, we're trying to get it to where it's a longer, because basically you got 3 days. You got 3 days, they evaluate you, you say you straight, you straight. When really that's not true, because most of our police officers are ex-military who are already suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. So we have to look into that a lot more. And I hate to keep going back to I don't hate to keep going back to it, but going back to Mobile Reserve, most of these officers, like Jason Flannery, were ex-Marines, you know. And when you read these police reports, he didn't describe a police-involved shooting. He described a tour in Iraq. He described a plan to carry out catching bin Laden. Like, he used military terms. He talked all these military
Right.
terms, and you're on Shaw and Clem, the south
Yeah.
side of St.
Right.
Louis, not
Yeah.
Kuwait.
This is not
nowhere else.
Syria.
Yeah.
This is not
Desert
Afghanistan.
Storm.
Yeah, that's real
Yeah,
though. So
yeah,
we really
yeah.
have to pay attention. But we as a community have, when we have these public documents, when we have these public meetings, when we have these commissions, when we have all of these neighborhood meetings where these officers and chiefs and everybody show up, we need to show the hell up.
Right.
We need to show up and we need to find out what's going on instead of sitting on Facebook and typing every 5 minutes about what you see on the news when you can just go find out yourself.
Right.
Everything that I found out, the reason why these people talk to me is because I found out stuff that was all public information. I broke it down myself and I need an answer.
And you held them accountable.
Man.
Now, Behind the Badge is a program under 28 to Life. It's been here for just a few months, right? Christian Johnson is one of the officers with that program.
No, that's serving with a badge.
Serving with a badge, excuse
Yeah,
me.
that's different.
Well, there's a lot of good programs out there. If you want Behind the Badge and to hear more about that, you can look up 28tolife.org. And
Wow.
that's 28tolife .org. And you can find Oops on any social media outlet. Tell them where
Yeah,
they can
yeah,
connect
yeah.
with you.
Bruce Franks Jr. That's my @. Hey, I had to get into my political role. So,
I heard that.
yeah, Bruce Franks Jr. 2016.
That's on Twitter, Facebook.
Yeah, that's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
right? I'm
Make sure
too-
you follow me
I'm
back
too
on
old
Twitter,
for
man.
Snapchat.
But anyway, man, I really feel like we need a part 2 with you, Oops, because
I'm with
this is a lot of good information, and I really appreciate everything you've been doing, man. It's been awesome, man. Cause I was telling Jay, I'm a big battle rap fan, so I see you battling all the time, man.
He a little starstruck
yeah,
right now.
Yeah.
That's all that
Hey,
is.
I'm getting back in the ring 2016.
For real?
Yeah.
CJ told me you was done. You hung it
Yeah, I
up.
was.
See?
You know, Jordan came back. I can.
Yeah. I saw them heavyweight belts he just brought home too.
Yeah, man.
So
You
I
got
saw that. I saw, oh, it ain't over.
that third.
He doing the Jay-Z move right now. It ain't over.
Yeah,
Come
man.
back.
That third round with Daylight, man. I don't know if I like that Daylight verse, man. You somebody gotta write something to that, man. but anyway, man. We enjoy having you on the show. We signing off. This is Brittae. I got Kira. You can follow me on Twitter at neverfear_26.
ITSKMV.
Y'all know where I'm at.
Yeah, yo. Yeah, oh yeah. And for those who listening, you can also like our Facebook fan page. So we're gonna go on a brief little break, like for the next couple weeks, and then we're gonna come back with season 2. Might open up with Oops,
Talk to
part
him.
2.
I heard.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I'm about to get into this quick poem by MC. It's really dope. So, thank you all, and here it goes.
Our final demise will not receive mainstream media coverage. There will be no extra. You will not be able to go out and just read all about it at your leisure. No front page news story headlines followed by some catchy ass tag phrase such as they lived hours before they died, such as they died hours before they could live. No signs will be held high to coast and ride the winds of the sky, nor a clever chance transcribed black genocide will not be properly televised. Instead, it will be brought to you by the swell folks of Fox 2, presented in smoke and mirrors and circus acts of justice, and we all know America's justice comes dressed in green tailored suits, stitched in arrogance, draped on pale skin color, can enslave you in the land of the free. So-called blind hands of justice weigh strange fruit that never seems to tilt in our favor, just leaves blood on the gavels and blood on them cuffs. Brown bodies don't swing in the breeze no more. Don't you know they lay? They lay in church pews and in cold chokeholds on familiar pavements, in courtrooms and jail cells. And although those ships have already sailed, they still try to sell us the hope of liberty. But where be Lady Liberty in all the madness? Somewhere with their torch blotted out and legs spread wide, whoring out her grace to that bastard called oppression. This system be a game of chess. And they keep handing out checkers just to keep us in check, to shorten our checks formula, keep them poor and misinformed, to keep controlling them, spin stories like merry-go-rounds, report facts as fiction, and pass around that word allegedly until it becomes familiar to the tongue and the truth to the listener. I mean, just follow the prompts. They'll even put a black face out front. An attempt to soften the blow, to build some rapport, to cloud the report like attention. Breaking news, this shit saying we not sticking up the poor. What do you think welfare is for? And there lies the truth of our black privilege stationary. But lucky for us, we can cash it in for half off obituaries. While our stories lay dormant and the knots formed in their throats, oh, the torments it must be under them big bright lights. You nearly gagged on the truth lays in the pits of their bellies, snuggle next to guilt. You listen close enough and you can hear them vultures cry, the almighty media where progress goes to die. But the jumpstart of black genocide starts in the mind, so what are you really willing to do to survive? Subscribe to the hype or choose to change the fucking channel? Say peace.